And now joining us on the line is Samah Sabawi, Palestinian, Canadian, Australian writer and commentator. And she's the writer and producer of a play that's upcoming at La Mama Theatre. It's called Tales of a City by the Sea. Thanks for joining us this morning, Samah.
Thank you for having me, and good morning.
Good morning. For listeners, can you briefly describe this play that's coming up?
The play is something I've written a few years ago. It began with poetry that I wrote during the attacks on Gaza in 2008, 2009. I was born in Gaza, and I have still family and loved ones there. And one way for me to deal with the horrific feeling of being so far away and so out of touch with them at a time like that was to express my feelings into poetry. So I wrote several poems during that time, and a few years later, I decided to go back and revisit the poems, and just reading them through, out of the poetry came a story, and out of a story, I had a script for a play, and so that's the background to this play. The play is really a poetic journey into the lives of ordinary people in Gaza who are struggling to have normalcy, to do normal things, to fall in love, to go to school, to just make a living and go to bed at night in the most extreme, abnormal circumstances you can imagine. So it's about their struggle to survive what's going on all around them in their lives. But it's also a love story between a lady who lives in Gaza and her loved one, her interest who is an American-born Palestinian doctor. And in a way, I explore through that relationship, our relationship as diaspora Palestinians, and the way we romanticize what's going on in the homeland, and how we connect to people over there, and how they view us and how they look at us as being people who are privileged living on the outside. And the relationship is really embodied in this love story between Jumana and Rami. So that's what the play is about. What it is not about is politics. I tried as much as possible to avoid having the play being a political platform, or to support one faction or another, or to get into the ideologies that drive a lot of the conflict.
Okay.
I really wanted the spotlight to be on the people and the lives, because that's what gets missing. Every time we speak about Israel-Palestine, everybody's looking at maps and numbers, and they're forgetting that the devil is in the detail of the daily lives of the people there.
Okay, right. That's maybe something that we can return to, but it sounds like a fascinating play, and you raise that issue of diaspora, and of course there's a huge Palestinian diaspora, and that's because of Israel and the occupation and how many millions of refugees that has created, which has in turn created a huge Palestinian diaspora.
Absolutely, and really we connect with them mainly through Skype. And a lot of the relationship between Rami and Jumana is captured through Skype calls for the most part in this play. But it's something that I did with my husband for like 6 months when he was stuck in Gaza as well. So I could totally relate to that. A lot of the references in the play are based on real life events that I've either experienced or I've known people who have experienced. And the struggle that we cope with as well, even in diaspora, it touches us. It is a global world we live in, so it touches everyone in one way or another, whether you are of Palestinian origin or not. The Middle East conflict touches your life in some way or another, but of course it's far more profound when you are related to people who live on the land over there.
Absolutely. And actually that's something that I wanted to ask you about. The play will open on the 12th of November, and it's set to premiere simultaneously in Melbourne and the West Bank. And it was originally also planned to premiere at the same time in Gaza, but due to the recent attacks by Israel on the city, the production in Gaza has been postponed,
Right.
which says a lot in itself, doesn't it? But
It does. I mean, it was when we were starting to gear up for the production. That's when the attacks. We've done the groundwork of wanting to get there, and now we were talking about casting and auditioning, and the script was fully developed. And then the attacks happened on Gaza, this last round of assault. And we started seeing how our colleagues in Gaza, the director who was going to do this play, the project manager in Gaza, who lost 11 members of her extended family during the assault, her office was completely destroyed when one of the towers was targeted by Israel. And with that was destroyed all her films, her artwork, the videos that she had prepared. It was absolutely devastating and sobering, and it made putting on this play all the more important for us in the West Bank and in Melbourne.
It must have been quite a surreal experience in a way that you'd originally written most of the poetry during the bombardment of 2008 to 9, and then as you're producing the play, a whole nother series of attacks were unfolding, the most recent ones.
Yeah. And far worse attacks. What happened in Gaza a couple of months ago is something that is far worse than ever before. It was an attempt at the destruction of life in a way that Palestinians haven't experienced since 1948, since the original ethnic cleansing of Palestine began. So it was heartbreaking, devastating. We were casting just toward the end of that, and it was surreal and sad. And for me, it was heartbreaking because I really wanted to bring this brand of art to Gaza. It was my love letter to Gaza in a way. I went there 2 years ago, and we staged the reading, and I vowed that the play will premiere in Gaza before anywhere else. But I can see that dream is just going to have to be put on hold for now.
The play will go ahead in Gaza, but it will be delayed. Is that correct?
It will be. It has been postponed. There are so many issues with trying to put it on. Psychologically, people are not ready for it. There is no place where they can have it. But even if they were ready to put it on and perform it, it is becoming extremely difficult to raise funds for an arts project. People just want to donate money into medicine and life crisis type of response. But when it comes to art, unfortunately, it falls as through the basket as something that is not an urgent need. And right now there is a lot of urgency in so many ways for the people of Gaza. So raising funds for an art project in Gaza is not really a good idea at the time being, unfortunately.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can imagine. And that's something that I wanted to pick up on. I mean, the play is being staged not in Gaza at the moment, but it will be staged in West Bank and in Melbourne. It will be carried out in 2 different languages, in Arabic and English. And right. I mean, it's being performed in really 2 very different cultural contexts. And no doubt the West Bank audience will have a very different relationship to the story than a Melbourne audience.
Right.
Does the play actually unfold differently? Are there differences between the 2 plays, or do you expect audiences to respond in different ways?
I think the play will unfold differently, and that's really part of the process of this play is more of a journey and an experiment than it is just a theatrical production. And it certainly is not going to end with the final night of showing in Melbourne or in the West Bank. I wanted to see how the different directors were going to interpret it in different cities and how the actors will lend their experiences to the characters that they're performing. Already in Gaza, it was taking a very different shape from the interpretation in the West Bank. They had very different plans for it, which we're not going to see now. But there were things that needed to be changed in the script, just slight things that needed to be changed so that they were more acceptable to a Gaza audience, to a conservative Gaza audience. In the West Bank, I haven't been asked to make changes yet, but I know that Abdel Fattah al-Basrour, who is an incredible, capable director, he will have his own vision into it, and it will be the product of his experience in the West Bank, which is a very different experience to those of the people in Gaza, both Palestinians in Gaza and in the West Bank suffer, but they suffer different realities. And of course, over here, our director, who is incredible, Lech, and I hope I'm pronouncing his name right, or he will kill me, Majevic, Lech Majevic. He's putting
it's a
his
Polish
experience.
name, I think.
It's Polish, yes.
We have a Pole in the studio here. Is that the correct pronunciation, Anya?
Show me the thing.
It's Majevic, isn't it?
I think so. Mackiewicz.
Maskovich, there.
Mackiewicz.
Anyway,
Doesn't matter.
I stayed all night practicing and it still didn't come out right.
Anyway, the director in Melbourne, yeah.
He is just fantastic, and he's so it'll be interesting to see the different interpretations. I'm allowing for full freedom for the directors to interpret in whichever way they want. I'm not being one of those playwrights that's going to hover over their shoulders and say, this is not what I wrote. So I look forward to seeing the final product, but I hope and pray with all my heart that the play will be performed for a Gaza audience eventually, because they deserve that kind of simple normalcy in their life. This is a story about them, for them, and they're being excluded from having to see it and celebrate it. When I did the reading, if I can just say this, when I did the reading in Gaza 2 years ago, it was in English. We were reading the English script. This was before it was translated into Arabic.
Okay.
So I didn't expect a large number of people to show up for the reading because it was in English. And yet people were lined up outside. Many of them didn't even speak English. I'd say half the people in the audience spoke good English and understood the reading, and they participated in the discussion. But a good other half didn't. But they came just to be involved. They came just to support the project. They were excited about having theater, albeit just reading of a play, not really a full-fledged theater. But they wanted to be part of that. And so I really hope that we do take it to Gaza.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it shows that there is a hunger for this kind of thing. And Gaza is your city of birth, I believe, and so this is sort of a tribute in a way, I guess. Yeah. Look, I think that's about all we have time for this morning, but thanks so much for joining us. It sounds like a fascinating play, and if listeners are interested, that's Tales of a City by the Sea. It's a Palestinian play, and Samah Sabawi, who we've been speaking to, is the writer and producer of that play. It will show at La Mama Theatre from November 12th onwards. Thanks again, Samah.
Thank you for having me. Bye-bye.
It's a pleasure. Bye.